the revolutionary ankle lock system, an integrated brace built into the boots, delivering unrivaled support, protecting ligaments from twists, tears, and trauma.
Regan Slaymaker for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and R Kings, and I have the pleasure to be joined by once again esteemed boxing analyst and author Andy Clarke. Andy, how are we on this fine Thursday, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good, thanks. Just been doing a little bit of work on what will hopefully be a new book project for
Oh
next
wow.
year. So not quite there yet, but yeah, hopefully it will be. So I thought I'd try and get ahead a little bit in the next few weeks.
Definitely. Well, that is a spoiler I am very excited by. After finishing the knockout not too long ago, but I won't pry for any more secrets. I want to be excited by it myself, Andy, as well. I mean, where else to start than I was ringside for Joshua Buatsi, Zach Parker over the weekend. Um, when I was ringside, I mean, I thought it was another decision, but I feel like this decision's kind of taken British boxing by storm at the moment. I mean, what were your first thoughts of? I mean, what the fight itself, and then the decision afterwards.
So I didn't watch it live, and I saw the aftermath and the outcry basically. And when that happens, what I do is I wait a few days until people have kind of, if not completely, stopped talking about it and then watch it. Because I always find it really fascinating watching a fight where there's been this kind of reaction and seeing what you think of it. Because sometimes it isn't what you're expecting. Sometimes it doesn't come across to you when you watch it as being all that bad a decision. It can just come across as a close fight where people saw it one way and a consensus formed around that, and that runaway train gathers a lot of momentum, and all of a sudden people are talking about it in terms of being a robbery, and you watch it and you don't really think it is one. So I'm always really interested to have a look when that's been a reaction. So I watched it this morning, and Zach Parker won. I don't see how you could score it to Buatsi personally. I don't turn the commentary off. I know some people say they turn the sound down. You should be able to watch a fight and have a look at it with your own eyes and not be too influenced by commentary if you feel that that's a problem. I didn't have it 9-1 like Cole Frampton had it, but I see how he got there. I think the absolute maximum you could give Buatsi would be 4 rounds if you were really, really looking very, very hard. And I was looking mainly for how many rounds could I give him, because obviously I knew the result and I knew what the reaction had been, and I just couldn't see. To be honest, I don't think I could really see 4 rounds, but at an absolute push, but definitely not five. So it's this old situation we have where you've got a broadcast team and pretty much everybody who was at ringside, by the look of it, the Zone and Talksport, two broadcast teams who both saw it exactly the same way, and then three judges who were sitting in almost exactly the same position returned very consistent scores and did not see it like that. And what we need to think about, I think, in these situations is, what do we do about that? Because some weeks people use judges' scorecards to confirm that they were right. I was in line with the judges, therefore I'm right. At other times, they will ridicule them and say that they're completely wrong and they haven't got a clue what they're doing. Now, that doesn't work, does it? As an approach, it just doesn't work. So that's really what we need to address here. Maybe there needs to be some kind of sit down almost between judges or the British Boxing Board of Control and broadcasters, and a good behind closed doors discussion about, okay, what is it that you're looking for? Because maybe it's not quite the same thing. I've always felt like it's very simple. It's not easy scoring a fight, but it's very simple. You're looking for who lands what. That's first, second, third. You know, you have to try and as hard as you can to separate fighters based on who lands what and what effect does it have. That's what it's all about. The way I've always thought about it is it's like a computer game. Two fighters have a full energy bar at the start of the 3 minutes, and you try and work out who, at the end of the round, has got the fullest bar, and whoever has wins the round. And the complicated thing is how much do you take off that bar for individual punches, weight of punch, reaction it gets from a fighter? It's not easy, but that's what you do, and you do that for however many rounds there are. That bar goes back to max at the start of the next 3 minutes, and that's how you look at it. Things like a fighter being on the front foot, I think, only comes into play if you can't separate the two on who's landed what. That's when that comes into play. I've never felt it's an all-round package of offense, defense, ring generalship. It's about punching. That's what it's about. And the other things all feed into that. And I guess the judges would have looked at Buatsi and felt like he was on the front foot the majority of the fight, which he was. Parker's team will have known that their tactics were going to be hard to pull off, but he executed them perfectly, because fighting mainly off the back foot, it's hard to win a fight like that. Judges, traditionally, they're not an enormous fan of it. But I thought he did it really well. He probably did get a bit of help from the referee, in that the referee didn't do anything about, he'd rattle off a combination and then kind of fall in and grab hold, and that makes it really hard to counter. But you keep doing it if the referee's not doing anything about it. It was a messy fight, not masses clean landed from either fighter. Nobody made a dent in the other. There was no point at which you thought one might unravel. But whichever way you look at it, Parker won enough rounds. Even if you factor in a kind of breakage, if you like, for maybe Buatsi getting a couple that maybe we think he didn't get because he was on the front foot. I think whichever way you look at it, he won. And if we'd had the same scorecards but the other way around, I think they would have been cards where people would have thought bit tighter, maybe a bit too tight, but okay. The reaction to the corners at the end as well, that sometimes can really tell you a lot, because if a fight's really, really close and no one really knows, then at the final bell, both corners will generally just celebrate raucously and get their man on their shoulders as quick as they can and do all of that stuff really, really fast, because they want to try and influence the judges' scoring of that final round, because the referee will go and collect the slips, and you just get in there and do that before they've maybe written their score down. Maybe that can make a difference. But in a fight like that, the final bell came, Parker's corner, very experienced corner, weren't leaping around. They felt like they knew. They told him before the final round, Buatsi needs a knockout, and I made them right. And it was just this quiet, confident, yes, we've done enough. And in the other corner, you could see that they were subdued. You could see that they were thinking, we haven't done enough. But it goes to the cards, and you never quite know what you're going to get. But yeah, he won. Zach Parker won, and he didn't get it. And he's rightly, him and his team, absolutely fuming about it, I think.
No, definitely as well. I mean, regarding Joshua Buatsi, I don't want to take away anything, kind of the performance from Zach Parker. I thought he won as well, on the night as well. We're known for kind of seeing Joshua Buatsi, like in his early days when he was stopping Liam Conroy for the British title, really aggressive, kind of knocking out, and he's just come off that Callum Smith fight, which was obviously, like we were saying, opened the Riyadh season bill back in February, in a fight of the year contender. Were you expecting kind of a bit more urgency from Buatsi in that fight? Because I feel like that's when we see the best Joshua Buatsi. Even against Craig Richards, he was kind of on Craig's chest that was when he kind of won those rounds as well. But yeah, were you expecting more urgency from Buatsi? Because I saw quite a passive Joshua Buatsi on Saturday night.
He's an interesting one, because you go back to the amateurs and he stopped people in the amateurs. If he saw a sniff of a chance in a 3-round fight, he would go for the finish. And not many people do that. They'll happily just land a good shot, a few good shots, step off thinking, okay, good, that's enough for me to win the round now. But not him. He would go after people. Who did he stop in Rio? He stopped an Uzbek number one, Elshad Razalov, who was in his 3rd Olympics. That doesn't happen to people like that. And that's what he's got in the locker. That's what he's always had. But you do wonder whether it's still there or not, because he does seem a bit one-paced at times. And I hesitate to say that it's been disappointing, his pro career, because it's a very tough division that he's in. But what you wonder when somebody turns pro is, where's their ability level at? And he's won an Olympic bronze medal, so his ability level is high. Will they be suited to the pros? You would say yes, style-wise and ruthlessness-wise, in the way that he would look to stop people. And then where's the toughness at? Because that's so important.
Mm.
And he's definitely got that. He's
Mm.
definitely got that. If anyone was in any doubt, he showed that against Callum Smith. I was never really in any doubt about that with him. And when you put that all together, you feel like he should be better, basically, as a pro than maybe he has been. But then again, he's lost the one fight to Callum Smith, who's a really, really good fighter. He hasn't had the opportunity to box for a world title. Bivol and Beterbiev don't look like they're going anywhere anytime soon. It is a really, really hard division. But he doesn't let his hands go enough. He does wait too long. And I do wonder about the corner a bit sometimes, honestly, because Virgil Hunter is held in great regard as a trainer, and I'm not disputing that his ability as a trainer, but I wonder whether how good is he on the night? I'm not really sure, because it seems like quite a low-key, subdued corner a lot of the time. Carl Frampton picked up on it on the broadcast. The way he likes to do it is he leans through the ropes and speaks in a fighter's ear. I'm not a fan of that. I think sometimes you need to be there right in front of him, looking into his eyes and telling him, this is what needs to happen now. And, I'm sure people might think, who are you to criticise Virgil Hunter? But that's what we're here for. You're asked for an opinion and you give it. And I do wonder about the corner on the night. How good are they on the night? I do. Because he needed to be told during that fight, listen, you're losing. You've got to go and do something about this. And when we went into the corner, that wasn't really what we heard. With 2 rounds to go, they're telling him, there was urgency. They're telling him, you need these 2 rounds. It's all or nothing. But should they have been telling him he needed a knockout? I think they probably should have been. But as it turned out, they got the decision. So, that makes a nonsense of what I'm saying. But yeah, he's a bit of an enigma, Josh, because everybody had just expected so much of him when he turned pro, and maybe that wasn't. That's tough. I mean, it's a very, very hard sport, and there's all sorts of strange things that happen. But it is, when you watch him, you're just kind of dying for him just to let his hands go a bit more. Not be just gung ho and reckless and leave himself wide open. But that's what you want to see him do. And in bursts he did it, but just not enough.
No, definitely as well. I want to park that for a minute, for the moment, and I move on to the next thing that kind of came out this week. I mean, I feel like every time we do an interview, Andy, I mention the name Chris Eubank Jr. every single time. But yeah, he posted some. I mean, off the back of his quite wild comments at the launch press conference, he posted some footage of his ambulance being supposedly blocked on the exit of Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I mean, like we've said before, everything that Eubank posts is for a reason. Is that kind of what you thought? What was that your first thoughts when you see this new footage?
The footage doesn't really. What the footage shows is that the ambulance was struggling to get out, and that it does show that, and that's there. You can see that those backstage areas, or rather those kinds of stadium car park bits deep in the bowels of the stadium, they often aren't the easiest places to navigate. There'll be, I don't know where that one was exactly, and they've got to have a clear exit. Obviously, that would have been sort of mapped out, and the promoter would be responsible for making sure that was the case, which I'm sure they did. But people can get in the way, things can get in the way, and that looks like that happened. But the idea that anyone involved in the sport on any level, let alone the promoter of the actual event, would play a part in obstructing the departure of an ambulance, I just can't have that. I just can't buy that. It's way too much for me. Why would they?
No,
for what
definitely,
reason?
yeah.
For what purpose? For what would the motive be for that? Yeah, and but the footage shows that it was obviously difficult for the ambulance to get out. But there could be lots of different reasons for that, and I just refuse to believe that one of those reasons would ever be anyone from Matchery making it difficult, preventing it from happening. That's just I just know. I mean, come on.
Definitely, because I feel like this is my opinion now, where he's posting that footage is kind of he's trying to almost reinforce to people who don't really know the sport, his side of things, where what he was saying about kind of Robert Smith, Eddie Hearn and things. I think for those that might not know the sport, they might think he has a point in that. That's probably, would you say that's kind of the angle that he's going down? I don't want to put words into anyone's mouth there. Like he's trying to reinforce his side of the story almost when anyone who knows boxing knows, like you were saying, that Eddie Hearn and Robert Smith wouldn't do that because it caused more harm to the sport, right? Well,
Yeah, of
by
course, and yeah, of course, and I think if you didn't really know some of the ins and outs, you might look at the amount that Eubank has been fined and the transgressions that he's had, and think, oh, they do love finding Eubank. They're on his case all the time, but that's because he says and does things
mm,
that need to be punished by fines. I can't think of one that he's had recently that I would feel was unjustified.
mm,
You're always going to get fined for striking someone at a press conference, which he did with the egg incident, posting footage of yourself making weight in a way which you're not supposed to. Again, that something's always going to happen as a result of that, most likely. So it just doesn't quite work, really. I don't think he can really claim Eubank. Well, he can claim whatever he likes, but I don't think he can justifiably claim that he's the victim here.
mm,
Yeah, but he does seem to be. You never really know what he wants out of it, to be honest, because it might just be pure mischief with him.
mm.
I don't know if he even. When did he get that footage? When did he? How long's he had that? Well, it's just things like that.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, the first thing I thought was, how long's he had this? Because and if he's only just got it, where did he get it from? All of that. It's things are never dull with him, though, are they?
No, 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 definitely as well. And I think it was quite clear. I think when he posted it, he put the caption as, "I could have posted this for sympathy ages ago." And I think that was like the leading line of it. So it was all slightly confusing from that point of things. I do want to move on to now kind of some more Anthony Joshua news. Andy as well. Andy as well. I mean, Chris McKenna. I mean, forgive me to if there's anyone else who put it out before Chris, but that's the first time I see it. That Anthony Joshua was kind of teamed up with kind of some of Usyk's training team over in Spain. I mean, I feel like the news about Anthony Joshua and going to different training camps is kind of always comes up now and again in boxing. But what do you make of that? A good thing, obviously. Anthony Joshua is not hasn't been short of training camps, but yeah, what were your first thoughts when you saw that news, Andy?
I wasn't that surprised, I guess, because he's chopped and changed quite a lot in recent times, and it's not a long career. He probably doesn't have that long left, and if you feel like you need to try something new, then now is the time to do it. And absolutely, it's only fighters' right to go wherever they feel they need to go, and I understand it because, as I say, time is a premium, particularly for him, because he's not going to want to stay doing this forever. He's previously talked about staying until he's 40. I don't see that, but he's not going to be that far off it by the time he finishes. And it's something that fighters just down history have always done. When things don't work out the way that they would like, they feel like they need to look for something new. That doesn't mean that they don't take any responsibility themselves. It's easy to look at that and say, oh, they're blaming everybody but themselves. It doesn't necessarily mean that. I don't think it would mean that with him because he is very self-analytical. A bit too much, maybe you could argue at times. I think he probably does suffer from the same thing that loads of elite level athletes suffer from, which is overthinking everything, thinking things to absolute death, because that's just, for most of them, that's just in their nature. It kind of depends what he's doing with Team Usyk. If he's just looking for a little bit of a freshen up, maybe take on the odd new idea, change of scene, he hasn't boxed for a long time, then why not? If he's thinking that he's going to go over there and train full time with them, I would wonder about that because Team Usyk's a tight crew, and they don't really train anyone apart from him and Daniel Lapin, do they? That's pretty much it. And he can't fight like Usyk, and that's not meant as any kind of criticism. It's just a fact they're completely and utterly different. Would they really be capable of or inclined to really invest in the Anthony Joshua project, if you like, and try and do something they've not really done before, which is train a pro heavyweight like him? They'll have trained loads and loads of fighters, Yuri Tikachenko, down the years, hundreds of them, obviously. But I don't think the answer lies there, if I'm honest. I think he'd be better off going back to Rob McCracken. I think he'd be better off just going back to the one person who knows him better than anybody else, who he had his best results with, who he had that unforgettably, at the time, disastrous night at the Garden with as well. And the first defeat to Usyk, that was Rob was in the corner for that as well. Other people were there too, so it wasn't just unmitigated success with Rob. But God, there was a lot of it. I mean, there was so much success, and you feel like he knows who he is and what he is and what he can do really, really well, and what maybe he doesn't do quite so well. And I feel like that's what he needs to get back to. And I thought Ben Davison did that. I thought Ben Davison did get him back there. But then he took to the ring against Dubois, and he just didn't really seem to be there in the right frame of mind. He started tentatively. There's no way that the way he went about that first round would have been what Ben Davison wanted. And I think that he himself would take full responsibility for that, Joshua, because he does do that. He doesn't just try and let everything slide off his shoulders. So I don't really know what it is that he's looking for exactly, because I felt like he had discovered that really important self-belief with Ben Davison. It just wasn't there at Wembley, which was a major setback.
Definitely. With that being said, obviously, I feel like if I asked you who you'd want to see Anthony Joshua fight next, I feel like you'd say Tyson Fury. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but obviously with Ben Davison's kind of close links to Team Fury, I'm not saying that would be an issue, but if it is an issue, is that probably why he's trying to? I'm not saying that we're gonna have an announcement anytime soon before anyone listening to this, but is that probably what maybe he's kind of putting the feelers out? I don't know. Could that be the thought process behind it?
Yeah, I've not really thought of that, but I suppose as a way to kind of remove what I don't think would be any kind of an obstacle, really. That would do it, but it also might just pique Fury's interest a bit, just rile him up a little bit. Maybe if Joshua's going to go and team up with Usyk and all of his guys, because surely that's the only fight that's going to be of any interest to both of those two. I still feel like Fury will come back. I don't want to see him have a warm-up fight. What's the point? Joshua's been talking about fighting, or rather Eddie has, early next year, or maybe even now still late this year on an undercard. Now, if you're going to have a shake off the rust fight, then that's the kind of fight that you want. People might scoff at it, but you need a knockover job that you cannot possibly lose, because what's waiting on the horizon is far too valuable for you to do anything else. And never mind anyone who says, "Oh, what's he doing that for?" Who cares? Who cares what they think about it? He's done more than enough in his career to, for the first time in, Christ, I mean, how far back would you have to go before since he got in with somebody who it was an absolutely foregone conclusion? I know there've been fights that he was expected to win, but almost everything has been a world title fight, apart from, Jermaine Franklin, Robert Helenius, Otto Wallin, and Garnu. That kind of like rebuild run. Since before he fought Charles Martin. So he can do what he likes, never mind what people think. And if you want to get in there and just get back out on fight night and, just kind of get a win, then do it. Then do it if you want to. But don't put yourself in any real jeopardy, because, as we always say, it's heavyweight boxing and you never know what might happen. But they're just still dancing around it, aren't they, those two? I don't know. Fury's been constantly training, but he hasn't come back yet. Frank Warren said that he thinks he will. I think we all think he will. but next year's got to be the year, isn't it?
It,
For that
it,
fight, you know.
mm. It definitely has, and like you said, trying to get out before the end of the year, I'm kind of wishful thinking, kind of want him to go onto the Giorgio Visioli card as the co-main event. I think that would be hilarious at the Indigo.
That'd
Just
be
to,
brilliant. That'd be amazing.
I think it would be, and I think Giorgio Visioli would enjoy that as well. I think.
Yeah.
Final one from me, Andy, as well. Yeah, it's a bit more kind of it's outside of boxing, this one, but the Jake Paul tank card, I mean, seemingly not happening anymore. It kind of bleeds into things that are a bit more serious than boxing, but feels like most valuable promotions and Jake Paul and Nikita kind of had no other option but to pull the fight night on I think what was supposed to be next Friday now.
Yeah, it looks that way, doesn't it? You know, it's always difficult to comment on things like this, specifically when there are ongoing situations. But I'd say that they have made the right decision. As for it not happening, I don't really regard that kind of thing as being anything to do with what I do for a living. To be honest
Mm.
with you, it's an event, it's entertainment. It would have done big numbers, I'm absolutely sure. As for what it is and who it's for, I don't really know. It's not me. That much I do know. And I guess, are they looking for an opponent then to try and replace him, keep that
I
night going, or
I think what I've seen online, and I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Pushing the fight night back to December, and I think either Gabe Rosado. I've seen Gabe Rosado, Edgar Berlanga, and Francis Ngannou all kind of mentioned, which
Ngannou was a bit insulted by it, I think, wasn't he, by the look of it?
yeah, I know. Then I think he kind of I don't know. But then I feel like he was insulted by the offer, but then also kind of that kind of fueled him up for
Interested.
the he was almost even more interested by it. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
I think what I do find interesting about this is, okay, if they push it back to December, then that's slightly different. But this is the kind of one situation where you're kind of 10 days out, 2 weeks out from a fight, whenever they first got wind of this problem. This is the kind of situation where it would be possible that Jake Paul and Nikita Badarian and MVP, who are very, very shrewd people, this is the one occasion where they might end up making a mistake
mm,
and taking someone at short notice who they shouldn't take. Because there'd be a whole raft of people putting their hand up for it, wouldn't they? Thinking, I'll take him at short notice. I'll make out that I've been sitting on a beach, eating and drinking for the last 6 months. But anything just to get in there with him. And then on the night, I'm gonna knock his head off. There'll
mm,
be loads of people putting their hand up for this. And you'd have to be incredibly careful about who you took at short notice, because for it to have any kind of meaning, you would need to take a decent opponent at short notice, because obviously they're up against it because it's short notice. You couldn't take some barely warm body at short notice, because
mm.
that would be even worse than giving them full notice. So this is the one area, the one situation in which it would be easy for them to make a mistake, but they don't make mistakes with things like
Mm.
this. They just don't. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they haven't been tempted into, somebody. Yeah, Ngannou, that'd be a mistake. It'd be
Yeah,
such a mistake. I know he got flattened by Joshua, but so what? Joshua is a two-time unified champion of the world, and Ngannou's 270 pounds of absolute granite. That would have been a terrible, terrible mistake if they'd given him the fight.
and he dropped like people. I know, my opinion, Tyson Fury won that fight with Ngannou, but he still put Tyson
But he was
Fury kind of
close.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
close, and he put him on deck as well. It's not like he's not going
Yeah.
to have punch power. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, Andy, we've breezed through all my questions, but yeah, I'll leave you with the final words. For the fans eagerly anticipating your new book or seeing you on a broadcast sometime soon.
Yeah. It's been an interesting few weeks. I was in the Philippines last week with the IBA 50th anniversary of the Thriller in Manila. That was great. The fight night was at the same arena. I joined a Filipino commentary team for Blow by Blow, a station that Pacquiao's got an interest in. Worked with them. They were awesome. I don't know them, so it would be really easy. And I've encountered a few in my time who would have made that quite hard for me. because some people don't really like to share airtime, but these guys were really, really generous and really good, and I just really enjoyed it. I was at Parker Wardley for TalkSport. Got a bit more of that coming up, maybe. The IBA have got a big thing going on towards the end of the year, and then we're into the new year. And it's interesting. It's interesting, definitely.
It definitely is, and I for one want to see Andy Clarke on more things, but more things boxing as well.
I've been a bit quieter since the second half of the year than normal, because Sky haven't been in operation the second half of the year. But I don't have any news on that front. But I think there will be some. I think there will be some sooner rather than later.
Perfect, Andy. I'll leave it there. Thank you again for your time, and hopefully catch up with you soon.
You too, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
The revolutionary ankle lock system, an integrated brace built into the boots, delivering unrivaled support, protecting ligaments from twists, tears, and trauma.